Okay. Hello and a warm welcome to Kashmir Times, to our special program, The Big Story, where we get you the important issues ailing the country and the world. In today's episode, we're going to talk about Afghanistan. What's happening in Afghanistan? And in fact, ripples have been felt all across the world since the time America announced that it's going to withdraw its troops. There's bloodshed, there's violence, all that is seen. But vis-a-vis India, we are wanting to understand as to what is really India going to do. Will it engage with Taliban or not? And what's going to be the strategic diplomatic move as far as India is concerned? And more significantly, what's going to be the impact in Kashmir? Joining me now is a power pack panel. Let me introduce you to them one by one. Ambassador Anil Trigunayat, who's been in Jordan, Libya, and Malta. I welcome you, Ambassador, on the program. Joining me is Sri Ram Cholia. He's Professor and Dean, Jindal School of International Affairs. I welcome you, Mr. Cholia. And also joining us is Mr. Dhruv Katoch, who is the Director of India Foundation. I welcome all of you. And today's discussion, I'm going to start with Ambassador Trigunayat, that the kind of strategic moves we are seeing, at least the perception is there that India is waiting and is also being criticized that India didn't get its intelligence right. India was caught off guard. India is in knots. Would you really agree with this perception?
Well, personally, I don't agree with that. Of course, in the hindsight, everybody becomes wiser. That is true. But at the same time, you must so see exactly in what context India helped Afghanistan first place, having suffered ourselves. So any group or associate which is there associates with terrorism is obviously it's a big no-no for the world. That's why India did not believe in a good Taliban or a bad Taliban. Did not approve of their tactics, and that is precisely the reason that we continued on a very different path. We went on the path of nation building. Now, as far as adapting to the changed reality, what India has done. India has been there. It is not that we have not talked about it. And if you were to just look at it at the starting Zai's response yesterday about India, he has clearly said that we would like to have good political and economic relations with India. And the gentleman actually had been trained in Indian Academy, military academy. And also, he also said that we would like to maintain the air corridor, which has been existing with Afghanistan. India is only one of the few countries which has really helped the nation building in the country. And thirdly, they are also saying that most important thing from our perspective is that the Kashmir issue should be resolved bilaterally between India and Pakistan. Thirdly, if you remember that we were present in the Moscow talks when we sent our former ambassador to Afghanistan and Pakistan to attend as a non-official delegation. But as you know, the things move. Secondly, at the Doha agreement, we were very much there. Thirdly, there have been, it has not been acknowledged by either side, but there have been contacts. So it's not that we are not there, but the fact is that we want a mutually agreeable, inclusive government. And lastly, I would say that you see the statement after the attacks. Taliban's name does not figure in that. It says all Afghans, groups and associations there. So that is also a clear signal. India is the president of the council at this stage, as you know. So it is not that. I mean, you have to have an agile diplomacy, and I think we are doing that. That is very important. It's not
No,
that
you're
we
right,
just go.
Ambassador, you're absolutely right when you say that the diplomacy has to be agile. And whether we got our strategy right or wrong, perhaps that's open to the jury again. But my question to Major General Dhruv Katoch now is that do you think that India strategized itself too much on the presence of the American forces and an Afghan government, which actually was caught napping? Would you agree with that? And will India learn from its, the challenges, the kind of challenges which India is facing right now?
No, I don't think India was caught napping. You see, there is a view that India could have done a great deal. I think this is a misplaced view. We do not have a land border, a physical land border with Afghanistan. Though, of course, if you take in occupied Kashmir, the Wakhan corridor is there, which is our territory, but it's not in our occupation. So it's not with our control. It's under Pakistani occupation. So the question is, what could India have done? And I think in the available circumstances in the last 20 years, India has done a great deal. And today, India is the only country in the world which has credibility amongst the local Afghan people. Now, it is very difficult to get that level of credibility. Nobody else has it. Now,
Mhm.
coming down to the question of success or failure, I think we need to define these terms. What exactly do we mean by success in Afghanistan and failure? And in the absence of any definition, it is very difficult to make any statements. But in my view, in a larger plane, I think anybody who has put his foot down in Afghanistan in the last 20 years and in the coming situation is bound to fail. It is not a win lose situation. We are playing a lose lose game. So the question is who can minimize his losses. Some people think Pakistan has won. You wait till December of this year and the whole of 2022. Pakistan is going to be in very serious trouble. So will China and Russia and Iran. So the
Mhm.
question, so to say that somebody is winning and somebody is losing, I personally would be very chary about or very circumspect about such words. I think India has done remarkably well. We have played our cards. I won't say cards. We have helped the people of Afghanistan. That is the most important issue. And that goodwill cannot be frittered away simply because the Taliban has come in. The Taliban, for a change, has acknowledged the Indian role and they would welcome it once again.
But
Really.
how much do we really believe Taliban, Mr. Cholia, coming to you now, that there is a huge difference in what the Taliban leaders say and what the Taliban fighters are doing on the ground? So, how does really India strategize itself? Because again, coming to the moves, India closed down its embassy. If that was the kind of goodwill which India was enjoying, and Afghan people really wanted Indians to stay back, Indian diplomats to stay back, then all of a sudden government's decision to close down its embassy. Don't you think that the story says something else completely?
Well, on the closure of the diplomatic mission, remember, almost all countries have done so. Every
Mhm.
country, it's not about Indian failure. You have to assess the situation on the ground, intelligence inputs, security threats. We just saw massive suicide bombing, killing almost 200 people or in the heart of Kabul. So, and past experience. See, you go back in time, we have lost a lot of people, including diplomats and defense attaches, to bombings in Kabul. In fact, our embassy had to be reinforced multiple times. So
Mhm.
there is a hostile element which is an anti-India, which comes from Pakistan, and which has had a presence even during the previous regime, which was friendly to us. And despite the goodwill, the popular goodwill in favor of India, there are a lot of rogue actors out there, terrorist groups who
Mhm.
nurse a deep hatred for India, especially Haqqani network. Haqqani faction was involved in many attacks against
Mhm.
our civilians and our defense personnel there. So I
Mhm.
think it's very important that in a time of grave crisis, transition from one regime to another, and no guarantees of security whatsoever from any side, we should err on the side of caution. Imagine the kind of uproar we'd have in India if we lost people or if our evacuations would have failed. So it was an emergency, and we also consulted with other diplomatic missions across Kabul with whom we had strong linkages, and all of them were of the same opinion that it is better to err on the side of caution. So just because
Okay.
Taliban, some spokespeople were giving assurances, that doesn't mean that we can assume that we will be safe. But yes, we would like a presence. Having a diplomatic presence on the ground is important. We would not want to be in the 1996 to 2001 type, system again, where we are exiled and we have no presence and no means to influence the outcomes in the future. So I'm sure that we are going to be talking about this in concert with other countries. See, and again, like our co-panelist was saying, it's not just about India, because look, the leverage that any single country can exert on this kind of country and this kind of situation with a lot of violent extremist groups and
Mhm.
jihadist groups is rather limited. So we have to act in concert with others. So we are going to be, the G20 is taking this up, the UN Security Council, UNGA, a lot of our regional partners. So together we are going to make a call on this, not only on recognition of or talking to Taliban, those kind of things, which are of course ongoing in different forms, but
Right.
also about our return and our presence there on the ground. I think that's going to be key. And we have some cards up our sleeves. It's not like we are completely, we have been marginalized or sidelined. So I think we're going to be bringing to play our goodwill, which of course is critical. But remember, people are passive in the sense people are neither pro Taliban or anti Taliban. I mean, they just are going to suffer through a lot of this transition. So Afghan people's goodwill plus some kind of assurances from the new regime, inclusive, whether it is inclusive or Islamic Emirate, it remains to be seen. Depends on the pressure that people put on Taliban. But the point is, in
Right.
that kind, we need to have a multi-stakeholder approach right now because we don't have boots on the ground, and we cannot really assure our own safety. We'll need foolproof guarantees to be able to operate there again. And I think that is something we should be looking at immediately.
Exactly,
Maybe
and I think
sooner.
that's the reason why that's exactly the reason why India is adopting a wait and watch policy. But my question now to you is, Ambassador Tribhunayev, that there is a large view that had India not closed down its mission, it would have been easier for them to engage with Taliban. Uh, would you really agree with that, given the kind of
I,
goodwill which India already enjoys with the Afghans?
no, I fully agree with Dr. Cholia and General Katoch on this. You see, the thing is that we have to take a call. Of course, I've been myself during the war situation in Libya, and we had been there. We had shortly evacuated and went back there, and the very similar kind of a situation existed at the time. So that is the risk that one has to take. But it is also true that if we had some attacks on the embassy, and it is not, I'm not saying the Taliban is against India. Taliban has very many times said that this is nothing against India bilaterally. But we have many groups which are actually supported by Pakistan. And it is in that context, and those groups have a standing animosity against India and Indian assets. So whenever there has
Absolutely.
been any attack or any possibility of an attack on the Indian assets or Indian projects, it has always been those groups which are basically motivated through a Pakistani and ISI efforts. So what I say
Absolutely.
is that being on the ground does help, definitely. But at the same time, in today's time and age, to have a communication, you don't need to be physically present there because you already have a tremendous goodwill. Now, what you need to do is with these, if you want to really engage, so there is a Doha office. The whole world has been talking to the Taliban from there. It's only now that they are there, right? And they are still not in control. They have still not been able to form the government. Then who do you talk to? You talk to those people, Mullah Brother or somebody. I'm sure there has been a possibility, and
Right.
it is not a problem. And they understand where we stand. They know that we are not interfering in the internal affairs of the country anymore. We are not supporting a government or B government, a group or B group. What we are trying to do is we are
Right. So, Major General Katoch, what exactly is the biggest challenge for India? Because,
no.
uh, Major General, coming to you now,
Yeah.
that, the biggest challenge for India, it seems, is that they don't lack strategic options. They do have strategic options on the table, but they are more worried about the fact that Taliban was created by countries like Pakistan. And India is more worried that what happens if Pakistan is emboldened because of Taliban. Is that the major worry and the challenge you see on the Indian front?
You see, no, let me put it this way. Firstly, as far as the one thing which I want to just add on to what the ambassador said,
Yes.
there is no doubt if our embassy was there, we were in a better bargaining position. Okay.
Mhm.
But what would have happened if the Indian ambassador there was taken hostage?
Hmm.
You see, we have to consider those possibilities. So when we are looking at the ground situation, I think it was a very wise decision that we moved out in time. That is one. Now looking
Okay.
into the future. I think the biggest problem which India is going to face is not from, as some people have been stating, that terrorists will come now from Afghanistan and they will come into Kashmir and other parts of India. The threat of the gun is very minimal. And even if it does come, the Indian army will take it on. I've got no I mean, I don't think we are even
But why do you
concerned
say
about
that? Major General Katoch, why do you say that the threat of the
I mean,
gun is
okay,
minimal?
no, I will say that one, how do they enter? This is, you
Mhm.
see, the question is enter. Now, as of now, is there a view that there are no terrorists within Pakistan who want to enter India? And is this going to make such a difference? there are already hundreds of thousands of people available with Pakistan to send to India. How will a few more Afghan Taliban make a difference? It won't make a difference. So the
Okay.
question is, why hasn't Pakistan been doing it? And my answer to that is, they have been rendered impotent. That is the point. Number two, as we are on to this, let me just complete that thought. In Kashmir, in Jammu and Kashmir, in the Union Territory today, the political linkages which they had with the Pakistani state, they stand broken. You see, especially because the Hurriyat linkages stand broken, and the soft separatists, the PDP and the other parties, Abdullah's party. You see, they were soft separatists. They were actually playing second fiddle to the Hurriyat, and
Hmm.
Hurriyat was in league with the Pakistanis. Now, those linkages stand broken. As far as the people are concerned, for a terrorist to come in, he needs to firstly infiltrate. Our defense is very strong today. Number two, he requires bases. Then you have to operate. It is not very easy. So if
Okay.
that is not really, I'm telling you the threat. I'll tell you where the problem lies now.
Hmm.
The problem lies in the radical ideology, because within some elements of India's Muslim community, especially in West Bengal and Kerala, where they have a certain element of political support, the feeling will be, or if they can actually get onto that feeling, that if the Americans can be defeated in Afghanistan, we can impose an Islamic emirate in India. Now,
Hmm.
that radical ideology is something which we need to guard against, because no weapons can fight it. Now, how do
Okay.
we deal with that? And that is going to be, please take it from me, that will be your potent threat from now onwards. The last point, as far as Pakistan is concerned, you see, Pakistan is actually moving towards becoming a Talibanized state, say 5 years, 10 years, 15 years from now,
Hmm.
unless they reverse course.
Hmm.
Now, the danger from a Pakistani Talibanized state, in my view, is not really from terrorists again. In my view, the larger danger which can come in, and this is my personal view, the larger danger which can come in if Pakistan gets Talibanized is hundreds of thousands of Pakistanis will flee Pakistan. They
Hmm.
can't go to Afghanistan. They can't go to Iran. They will not throw themselves into the sea. The only route open is India. Are you prepared to take in 10 to 20 million of these refugees?
Absolutely. In fact,
That is going to be, that will,
you raised two major points. One
yes.
is at a seemingly large refugee crisis which India is staring at, and the other problem which India could face is the radical ideology. Mr. Cholia, you want to throw some more light on these two factors and how it's actually going to impact the scenario in Kashmir as well?
Yeah, the online radicalization is a problem, and I saw images of anti Bashar al-Assad, the rebels in Idlib province of northern Syria,
Hmm.
bordering Turkey, carrying the Taliban flags last week,
Hmm.
and demonstrating and saying that this is victory for Islam against infidels. So
Right.
this ideology is likely to be very poisonous and very dangerous and contagious. And that's something, we have to do a lot of cyber policing also within
Hmm.
our country, especially within the valley, but also the other centers General Katoch was mentioning, which have been past hotbeds for ISIS ideology. And I think one has to also worry about a lot of the light weapons that the Americans have left huge cache while they were evacuating in haste. And it's such a terrible imagery to see Taliban carrying American automatic weapons and riding Humvees and triumphantly displaying US aircraft and such things. So they have got a huge amount of hardware now. It's similar to the post 1989. If you remember, after the
Absolutely.
Soviets withdrew, the Americans again left a huge cache of weaponry there, which fueled the civil war, which fueled the rise of Taliban, lots of things. So now the question is, if you take a medium-term perspective, even if fighters don't come, or if Indian Army is able to deter them, the point is more infiltration bids, more cross-border firing, more other means by which they can try and penetrate into Kashmir or brainwash some of the youth there. So we've got to be cautious. There's no question that there's a storm coming our way, and we've got to be, we need to preempt it through
Absolutely.
strong internal and border security measures, but also, like I said before, concerted action at the regional and international level to try and nip the problem at the bud in Afghanistan itself and in Pakistan itself. So
Right.
if that requires, now if the Americans are saying they are going to continue doing this over the horizon counterterrorism strike, they've already taken 2 strikes in the last 2 days. Now, what does it mean? I mean, the Taliban is saying you can't do this after August 31st. I think the Americans will keep on doing it. So, in what ways can we
Absolutely.
be involved in such things which directly harm? If Maulana Masood Azhar has indeed gone and met the Taliban leadership, I mean, in Kabul, as is being told, I mean, that's a blatant signal. Remember the IC-814 hijacking that went to Kandahar. So even aviation security, we've got to be cautious. I think, there's no room for complacency, and it is a security challenge, a big crisis for us. It's not just about our regional influence or access to Chabahar and all those longer projects for India to have a look west policy, and all those are also at stake. But
Right.
something very, very basic, which is core national security, is very much on the line, and we need to work on this.
Absolutely. And national security is something which the present BJP government has been made it into a national narrative. But that is something which we could probably discuss it at some other day. But my question to you, Ambassador, now is that what is India really waiting for? Is it really going to engage with Taliban because there is a domestic pressure from the opposition that should India engage with Taliban or should it not engage with Taliban? Because India has never believed in talking to Taliban sitting across the table. At least that's what we've not seen. And then there is another picking situation that within the Taliban, you have two factions. One is an extreme faction and one is a non-extreme faction. Now dealing with ISIS, Khorasan, and so many other factions, Lashkar-e-Taiba, and all these, the terrorist outfits. So how is India really going to balance this situation?
First, let us try to understand that ISIS, Khorasan, and Jaish-e-Mohammed, Lashkar-e-Taiba, they are different organizations. Lashkar-e-Taiba is actually spawned the ISK, which we are talking, is mostly with the Pakistani influence. Taliban, on the other hand, is also not a monolithic organization. It has many groups, including the Afghani, including the Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan, including the people from different ethnicities. So now what they are trying to do is, and you are saying that wait and watch, right? That is the current policy, but that does not mean you are simply sitting in a yoga mode and meditating. You are not. You are working on it. We are working at the United Nations Security Council. We are working with the Russians. We are working with the Iranians. We are working with the Pakistani. Course of action which the international community can bring about. And in the same time, as you see the statements coming out of the Taliban organization itself, will try
I think there's
to,
some. Yeah. Yes,
in my
yes, sir, go
view,
ahead.
yeah, in my view, what India should be doing, apart from these interactions which are happening, whether back channel or whether at the UN Security Council or in Qatar or wherever, as soon as there is a possibility, and in which we have always been the first responders, India should be providing should be the lead as far as the humanitarian assistance is concerned. The French are going to do that. The Germans are ready. We should try to coordinate those efforts and try to do that for the people of
But
Afghanistan. Because
But
see, the Taliban.
Ambassador, pardon me just for interrupting you for 2 seconds. But my point is that India, if it continues with its good intentions on nation building, humanitarian aid, but there is also the big dragon which is staring at you. China is trying to flex its muscles. Russia is trying to flex its muscles. So, doesn't India get sandwiched between the two? How does India move on from there?
It is a geopolitics. I mean, you have to carve out your own space. And either China has that kind of, even if Taliban, let us say, is talking to China or to Russia, none of them are there on the ground the way we are. So that is something you can't just decimate. I mean, that is precisely the reason that the Americans wanted India to go and help there. So uh, the way India works in its conduct of diplomacy, which we often call a soft power or something like that, and local capacity building, which the average, that's why, the Afghan people are looking to India. They do look to India. It's the biggest country. It has the best relations through the history as far as Afghan people are concerned. So that is nobody can take away. China may bring in money. It is interested in its geopolitical game. It is interested in BRI, the economic corridor. It's only Xinjiang and all that, or mineral assets there. What I'm saying is that we are there will be a competition from the side of the government, definitely. Taliban government would like to see who's going to invest fast because they also are looking to show and look after their own people. So I think it is
Right.
going to be a challenge. It's not there, but we have to carve out our own strategies and that. And I think the strategy begins with what we are best at the moment, and that is how to counter terrorism and how to provide relief to the people.
Okay, so counter-terrorism, I mean, that is something to wait and watch for. But Major General Katoch, is India also waiting to see what kind of an avatar does Taliban manifest into? Because we saw Taliban 1, now we are seeing Taliban 2. And there is a huge difference between what they are saying and what they are doing on the ground. So is India really waiting and watching to see some other avatar of Taliban right now?
In my view, Taliban 1.0
Hmm.
we don't have Taliban 2.0 now. In my view, we've still got Taliban 1.0, which has been extended. That's it.
Okay,
So
okay,
I don't see any change between the earlier dispensation and now. This is
okay,
point one. But the
okay.
question is,
Hmm.
whatever government is there, India will have to engage. Now,
Hmm.
engagement and recognition are two different issues,
Okay,
right? We have to engage with whoever is there. Now, you can't say that we close our eyes. Uh,
okay.
a great deal is already happening under the radar.
Mhm.
We don't like to advertise these things. So, politically and diplomatically, a great deal of action is already on. Right?
Okay,
It
so
will not be
you are saying that India is already doing what it is supposed to do. But Mr. Cholia, coming to you now, what is the repercussion which one worries about, and especially Prime Minister Narendra Modi, if he engages with Taliban and the kind of anti-Muslim politics which we have seen, the saffron agenda? Uh, do you see BJP burning its hands? So it's a political question, but I'm forced to ask you this question. And then my
I
last
think
word to Ambassador Trigunayak because I know he has to go. Yes,
I
yes,
think
Mr. Cholia.
Narendra Modi has never approached foreign policy from a domestic, divisive domestic lens, and in fact, he has tried to unite the country to face, the common challenges. Our two
No,
main
but
adversaries.
Balakot was used for the domestic purposes. Then recently, when he was on a Somnath temple trip, he did make a mention of Mahmood Ghazni as well, which many people said that it was ill-timed.
No, look, so in 2019, the Balakot attack was timed by Pakistani terrorist groups. It happened before the election, so it was inevitable. But I don't think, I mean, 2014 election, when he first came to power, there was no such use of anti-Pakistan rhetoric. In fact, Pakistan was invited to his inauguration. So I think, look, he responds. I think the thing is, when we have been attacked, remember, Pulwama attack was not a small thing. We lost 40 forces by suicide bombing. And where is the culture of suicide bombing coming from? It is not, although the attacker was a local boy from Valley, he had been
Mhm.
trained, influenced by the Jaish and Lashkar from
Okay.
across the border. So that's where I think, see, I don't think, in my view is, India has to respond forcefully if its interests are at stake, and it will continue to do so. We have been very proactive, and it's people at home can interpret it any way they like and say that this is, election gimmickry or whatever. But I think
Mhm.
if you look at it, the longer term changes that in our national security posture and doctrine that Mr. Modi has brought about are actually quite significant, and they are making us stronger and more capable. Remember, after Article 370 was abrogated, there was a talk that, Imran Khan was openly threatening there are going to be more Pulwamas. We're going to, make life miserable for you. What could they do? Ultimately, people of Kashmir are seeing a different administration now under as a union territory, and I think we have strengthened our case that India as a nation is one, and I don't think we should look at it from religious or narrow, petty, divisive points of view. And ultimately, that is the strength of the country, right? I mean, there are a lot of Kashmiri Muslims who are now entering the mainstream through our development projects and our integration efforts, and I think that is the key for us, because that's how we'll keep out these ISIS winds away from our soil.
Okay. So, Major General Katoch, I'll give you the last word. according to you, if you have to give a prescription to Prime Minister Narendra Modi on tackling the current crisis which is evolving after Taliban has captured Afghanistan, what are the three things which you would offer to the Prime Minister at the table from your end?
Uh, very frankly, I think we have got one of the shrewdest and most far-thinking prime ministers ever. So he's already, a few steps ahead of the game. So,
Mhm.
but if looking at simply policy prescriptives, and just because I'm saying it doesn't mean it's not being done. I have a feeling all these actions are already in place. I think the first thing which we need to do, as far as the domestic audience is concerned, is to take preemptive measures against radicalization or the seepage of the radical ideology in certain segments of the population, which I think is going to be intensified by hostile agencies. Right?
Mhm.
And this is the first point. Number two, I think we need to be very proactive against Pakistan because the fountainhead of terror lies in Pakistan. The problem has never been Afghanistan. And with all my American friends, both diplomats and in think tanks and in the service community, when we make this point to them, they say, we know. And the surprising thing is, when they say we know, yet they did nothing about it. I think for the first time we are doing something about it. As you spoke about Balakot, it was doing something about it, addressing the fountainhead. And because we have addressed the fountainhead, appropriate deterrence has been placed in their minds. Otherwise, they would always threaten nuclear war. We have called the nuclear bluff. So I think it is very important to keep conveying that message to Pakistan. We will not be blackmailed. We will not be cowed down. And if you resort to such tactics, there will be very heavy consequences which you will not be able to bear. The
Right.
third point, as far as Afghanistan is concerned, I think we have to continue with this wait and watch policy. There is no way in which India can recognize the Taliban government
But
immediately.
how long are we going to wait and watch,
Well,
Major General Pradesh?
let the government, I would say, first let the government be formed.
Mhm.
We cannot recognize a government which has not been formed. So let the
No, but
government be formed.
supposing if this period takes a bit longer, say about a year, many are saying that it could take years, not year, but years. So how does India's position then remains in a limbo if it takes a long
No,
time?
but then that is true. India's position remains in a limbo, but the position of Russia, the China, Iran is also in a limbo. None of
Mhm.
them are recognizing this present government. Not
Mhm.
one of them. Even Pakistan hasn't recognized the present
Then are
government.
we
And
justified?
no, no,
Sorry for
no.
interrupting you, but are we justified then when we say that we have an advantage when we have a lot of presence on the ground?
No, the
You
question is,
yourself said it.
I will just give the counter to that. This is my personal view. If you, as of now, justify, you go ahead and you give legitimacy to the Taliban government without their having to prove so, then I think we have let down the people of Afghanistan, and I think that is a crying shame. So we
Okay.
have to hedge our bets on the long term. My personal opinion is, please don't bet on any government. Bet on the
Okay.
people of Afghanistan. That is where goodwill lies. Goodwill doesn't evaporate within a day, right? So, but don't join the wrong party. We have to deal with them. Yes, we will deal with the Taliban. We will talk to the Taliban. We will engage with the Taliban. But recognition is a totally different issue. That, in my view, I think we need to wait and watch which is the government's policy, and
In
I feel it
fact,
is the correct policy.
yes. In fact, the third prescriptive which you have given that hedge all your bets on the Afghanistan people, that brings me to my first question, which I asked Ambassador Trigunayev, that did we really depend only on the presence of the American forces and we relied too much on the Afghan government? Mr. Cholia, your last thoughts, and then I wind up the show.
No, look, we relied on moderate forces. We
Okay.
relied on a regime and a system and a thought that was decent and based on human equality and human rights and democracy. We're a democratic country.
And you don't
We
feel in any way that India failed anywhere in this crisis?
well,
But
the entire expression of the
be it the geopolitics, be it the real politics, be it its engagement with the people of Afghanistan.
I would say the entire international community, which had invested so much, has failed.
Mhm.
So we can take up maybe a small portion of it. I mean, we were not the main. We did not ask for a U.S. invasion in 2001. We did not, we were not in support of that. We simply went for, as I said, a decent and a moderate form of government which suited our interests at the time. Now, obviously, the Defense Minister Rajnath Singh has said we are recalibrating and we are going to redesign our strategy. So I think
Okay.
it's a transition period, and India is quite capable of finding means to defend its interests.
Okay, so one doesn't have options during a transition period but to wait and watch, as Major General Dhruv Katoch said. It was a pleasure talking to you, Mr. Cholia, Major General Dhruv Katoch, for giving us the time. And I also want to thank Ambassador Trigunayat, who was part of the show. In fact, he was in a hurry. He had some engagement, so he left. Thank you, all of you. And stay tuned to Kashmir Times for another discussion on an important issue. I'll join you after a fortnight. So stay tuned to Kashmir Times. Thank you once again, gentlemen.